Hey nerds, this is Brian from Good Nerd Bad Nerd, and this is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Theories and Conspiracies. This week we had an amazing episode that set up a lot of the conflict that's going to come for the rest of the season, and leading into, I think, Age of Ultron and what repercussions come out of that towards Civil War. There weren't a lot of Easter eggs or name drops in this episode, but we're going to get into all that. First, I just got to say, I've got my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. lanyard, courtesy of Loot Crate. If you guys aren't subscribing to Loot Crate, you have to. They're not paying me to say this. This is just, this month's theme was spies, so it just seemed appropriate. I've got my lanyard. You guys need to get yours. Okay, let's just get into this. First, let's talk about S.H.I.E.L.D. versus the real S.H.I.E.L.D. We really don't have much. We got to see the guys who are in charge. Edward James Olmos is the leader of this group, but no one in there is a character from the comics. The one character that we have seen before, her name's Annie Weaver. She was the head of the S.H.I.E.L.D. Science Academy that we know Fitz and Simmons were at, where we had the episode where the character Blizzard was created. But outside of that, there's no one in that leading group who's from the comics. So there's nothing that we can get from that group per se. There are some interesting things here that I do think relate to the comic, and the biggest one is their base, the aircraft carrier. I think this is going to be the MCU version of the Raft. Now, the Raft is a top secret S.H.I.E.L.D. base in the comics, which is usually designed to house prisoners, but superpowered prisoners and villains aren't really a big problem yet, so the Raft in the MCU is going to be this aircraft carrier, this mobile base. I don't think it's a helicarrier. I think this was in play before the helicarrier was designed and built, and it's possible that the helicarrier was a previous Raft that they retrofitted and something along those lines before they built all those ones for the Captain America Winter Soldier. So they're on the Raft. That's kind of what I think is going on there. The other interesting thing is they claim to be the real S.H.I.E.L.D., but Talbot doesn't know about them. General Talbot, when Agent Ward in 33 broke into his base, he didn't call the real S.H.I.E.L.D. He called Coulson. As far as he knows, Coulson is S.H.I.E.L.D. So it's interesting that for this group that claims to be about no more secrets, which is kind of stupid for a spy organization, I'm just going to say, you're all about secrets, but that the actual U.S. government doesn't know to call them when something that is right up their alley happens. So that is in question. Now, I'm going to touch on this a little later, but there's an interesting thing here about the real S.H.I.E.L.D. and the S.H.I.E.L.D. And how it pertains to what happened actually in the Civil War stuff with the Avengers and the Secret Avengers. So I'll get to that in a little bit. Next, Ward in 33. This is just who do I think Ward is and what do I think him and 33 are doing. Ward, I've talked about in the past. I gave a bunch of options for who he is. I want him to be one of two people, either Constrictor or Taskmaster. Both of those characters had a huge role in the comics in the Civil War and then the Dark Reign, which is when Norman Osborn's Hammer took over in place of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, last week I said Hammer was a possible replacement for S.H.I.E.L.D., and that's who the real S.H.I.E.L.D. might end up being. But I don't think the MCU is going to go the route of Hammer actually existing. I think they're just going to have this real S.H.I.E.L.D. So Ward, I would like to be either Constrictor or Taskmaster. Both of them have histories with S.H.I.E.L.D. Constrictor was an agent who went undercover and then basically got severe trauma and forgot who he was, essentially. And, you know, he's peak physical condition kind of guy with a suit of armor that's basically his costume is his powers. So that's a possibility. And then Taskmaster, who I've talked about before also. He's got the the memory, the photo reflexes. He can see any move and copy it. Um, he would be a lot of fun. And the reason I really do like Taskmaster is Taskmaster. If you look at how they're using him in the Ultimate Spider-Man, he's been putting together a team in some of the past episodes. I think that has run its course, but he was putting together a team. I'm not saying that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is copying the cartoon, but Disney and Marvel have changed a lot of their cartoons to more reflect what's happening in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Agent Coulson is in the cartoons. He's Spider-Man's handler. Um, it makes a lot of sense that they would try and pattern the cartoon after the movies, so things that are happening in the cartoon could theoretically happen within the movies, or at least within Shield, or be similar to that. So Taskmaster is an option. But what are Ward and Taskmaster, or sorry, what are Ward and Agent 33 up to? And honestly, I think they are starting to build a team of mercenaries, probably characters that they can convince they're the good guys. Both of them can talk the Shield talk, so that's not a problem. We already know that Agent 33 has strong ties to the character Hercules, and there's been rumors and speculation that Hercules will be making an appearance on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So it seems very likely that we're going to see those two involved in basically a superpowered arms race, building their own superpowered team to fight Coulson's team, or possibly the Inhumans, or just to kind of be mercenaries for hire. It'll be interesting to see what actually becomes of that. So that's what I think Ward and 33 are up to. And then lastly, where's this all going? What is the end game for this season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? And honestly, I think this is set up. They are laying groundwork for Civil War. After Hydra, S.H.I.E.L.D. was basically decimated, but that there wasn't a complete power void. You're going to have S.H.I.E.L.D. versus real S.H.I.E.L.D. And what I was talking about earlier with the Civil War and the Avengers and Secret Avengers is both teams claimed the Avenger name, but neither really had more right to it than the other. And that's what you seem to have going on here. One team had Captain America, so you would think that they would be the Avengers. But the other team had Tony Stark, who at the time was the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. And so he had that kind of the actual government approval, and he was sanctioned with the Avengers, kind of things like that. But so you've got the two teams. Neither of them, I think, have the full legitimate claim to the title, although Coulson's team did get the approval from Nick Fury. But they all still think he's dead, so it'll be interesting to see what happens when he does resurface. Now, how I think this plays into Age of Ultron and Civil War is this is all going to blow up. The real S.H.I.E.L.D. will be around at least for 6 or 7 episodes, and I think it's just they are going to kind of wipe each other out. Coulson's team will still be around after all this. They maybe are going to take over the raft. That would be pretty cool if they could annex the raft into their own equipment and base and things like that, slowly building back up their own power base. But I think their fight is going to become very public. I think this is how the Avengers are going to find out that Coulson is still alive. And from this, I think that's kind of where Iron Man, Tony Stark, gets the idea that we can't leave the security of the world to people because they're going to be fighting over it. So we need something that is not going to struggle for power, and that's why he's going to build Ultron. And Steve, Captain America, isn't going to like this, and this issue of taking the responsibility away from people and people not being responsible for their actions, and Tony not wanting to have to do the fighting and leave it up to someone else in technology, and everything that comes out of Ultron is what leads us to Civil War. And I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of death in Age of Ultron, and it's going to fall on Tony's shoulders, and they're going to have major issues about it. So that's what I think's happening, and that's where I think this is going. I know a lot of people were upset we didn't get more Inhumans, but the Inhuman stuff has got to drag out for a while. We're not getting that movie till 2018, so bear with it. The spy stuff is going to get cool, and next week promises a fantastic showdown between Agent May and Mockingbird. So just for that alone, I'm excited for next week. So this is Brian from Good Nerd Bad Nerd, and this has been Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Theories and Conspiracies.